Hey guys, welcome back to the Ask Muso podcast, brought to you by Yellow Music. I'm very excited about this week's episode. We've managed to tee up something very the ultimate scheduling between Victoria and Queensland. We've managed to tee up the ultimate scheduling success. So I've got Tyler, I've got Blankface. Blankface in the studio. So
wow,
mate, say g'day.
G'day guys. This is the debut Blankface guest appearance on a pod, and God, what an honor it is. Thank you so much for having me, Bailey. This is an honor. Like you said, some serious admin went into making this happen.
Yes,
and I'm so thankful that my brain cells, all four of them, were able to come together to make my appearance possible. So thank you for letting me come on here. And let's just see what happens, man. Let's shoot the shit, as they say.
As they do say. Well, what actually is Blankface? Why Blankface? What's that name?
What's the name?
Yeah, like what actually is the name?
Okay, great question. So Blankface is just straight up ripped from Schoolboy Q album. And Schoolboy Q is like a rapper he's with Top Dog Entertainment. He hangs out with Kendrick Lamar and that crew. And yeah, I don't know, when I was, I've been in bands like for years. And then as you like leave high school and everyone just kind of disappears and goes and does their own thing, I was just recording music and demos and stuff, and I wanted to put it out. And I couldn't think of a name that was like, all I was trying to do was think of a name that wasn't my own name. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
But also,
I get that.
Yeah. Like, I didn't want to just be like, Tyler K or whatever. But at the same time, I really just hate naming things because I hate feeling like I'm taking myself too seriously. Yeah. And when you think of a band name, you know what I mean? You want it to be something cool that you'll be like, put this on a t-shirt. But also, I just felt kind of gross, like doing something too cool.
Yeah.
And then I just was, at the time, listening to that album. I just took it. So that was there's really no meaning to it. Because that's the thing too. Okay. You know when you like your family or like, you know, mum, she puts on a Blankface song and she's like, what does the lyrics mean? Like, what does this mean? I'm like, I'm not going to break this down for you. It's not that deep. I just wanted to do something that was, you know, just was it. I don't know how else to explain it.
I wanted to create some sort of like this is a musical piece.
Yeah.
This is a season that I was in or something.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
This is for your listening enjoyment.
That's it. And then you just take with that what you will. There's no rules to how you digest it. So that's the same thing. There really is I just took it from the name of an album I liked. So there's no like special meaning to it. There's no like, Blankface, you know, he's mysterious, he's emo. It was just taken, you know.
But also, I think that's almost better because a lot of people they change them like you change clothes. Like I remember having this chat with someone like a couple of seasons back, and we're talking about just changing your name every 3 minutes. It's like, mate, you're not Apple. You can't just change things and people are going to go, oh, that's that. No, and they're going to forget who you were called.
With music, I think letting people, most of music is just branding, right? You know what I mean? It's not even the music itself. It's like how you package it and sell it. So I think changing something like your name, like that's why I always think of bands like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard or something like that, where every album is a different style, like as opposed to like them being like, we're like a rock band, but this album's like jazzy. Let's change our name and release it under a different project. Just put it all out as the one thing and let people who like you for what they recognize you as, like, get into different stuff. You know what I mean?
Literally, let them consume it.
Let them consume it. Just trick them into thinking what they're going to get is something that they know they like. And then even if you're doing something new and you are rebranding yourself with your music in a new genre or whatever it is, they'll absorb it because they're used to liking you. You know what I mean?
There's familiar elements.
That's what it is. The familiarity is key.
When I first caught up like in the Delacoma band,
yes,
he had a band called Sunset Ride and then other different names and all that. And then when people leave and things change and all that, it becomes tricky because suddenly it's not him. So he decided to go sort of in the opposite direction, bite the bullet and be like, I just want to be my name because then it comes with me.
Yeah,
if you come and float in and out, that's fine too.
That is exactly right.
I'm powering on full steam ahead. If you want to be on this train, you're welcome to.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Blankface is. So I have a live band now, but pretty much everything is this is all a one man show. Yep. You know what I mean? Like it's not. There's not even a manager. If there's some sort of venue book of listening to this, there is a manager. When I sign off with Jack Crawley or something. I don't know if that's a real person. That's a real person. Trust me, that's my manager, and it's not me just signing off with a different name.
Well, obviously not. That's, As we both know, it is fun to say stuff.
It is so fun to say things. Exactly right.
So
exactly right.
This is obviously just a performance.
It's all performance art. It's all performance art. This is all in the video game.
That's what you get with Blankface. It's just a 100% performance.
Exactly. We're all committed to it 100%. But yeah, that's the it's a one-man show, and I think if you just chuck everything under one umbrella, people who like you and follow you because they like your music will follow you regardless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is, and you're a man who's involved in many musical acts, are you not?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly right. So like I said, people will just follow you.
Literally. And I think that's a big thing that I've learned is not being the guy up the front, to sort of have the not memory in like a conceited way, but like people to understand sort of where to find you.
Yes.
They're never going to see you and go, oh, I remember you're the guy with the curly hair up the front. No. Oh, that's not me. I'm the guy with the hat on backwards at the back. So it's like, I got to keep it all in one place rather than trying to change things. And for me, I think that branding is important, but and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. The biggest misconception of like modern day music, well, groundbreaking here. The biggest misconception of modern day music is that we should be 100% in charge of understanding and distributing who would like the music as the marketers. And as someone that works in marketing for a living, I find it so confusing that the person that has the most responsibility to get it out to the people that are going to enjoy it are the people that write it. Well, that's sort of not what we wrote it for.
No. You know what? That is, oh God. You're a smart boy, Bailey.
Great episode, mate.
Yeah, this is, all right, pack it up, stop recording. No, 100%, like that is 100% right. But that's the thing with modern music is like, you're not really a musician. You're like a content commodifier. Do you know what I mean? Like it would be if I had a lamp, like a genie's lamp, and he gave me 3 wishes, the first wish straight away would be like, let me be self-sufficient and just write and make and release music.
Yep.
Not have to do anything else.
Yep.
Like if I could just make the music and release it and not have to worry about marketing or getting people to shows or organizing things with venues who don't reply for 3 weeks or making posters and making... You know what I mean? If I didn't have to do any of that, making TikToks, oh God, like that'd be the first thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, and you get Jack Crawley on the TikToks. Surely.
Is that a real person?
I don't know.
I'm just scared that do you know what I mean? Like,
I don't have a Jamie in here, mate. As you can see, it's just a tool.
I know. I'm just, I'm scared that like I've said that name and it's a real person, and now someone's gonna be like, "Why the fuck are you talking about?" Anyway,
I've not once done anything for Blankface.
No, exactly. No, if I could not make, and that's the thing. That's the hardest part I grapple with is like, I'll release a song or something that I've spent weeks, months, hundreds of hours working on, and I release it, and it just kind of like puffs into the air. And people go like, great song, like I love this song. But then after that, it feels like no one's really listening, even though maybe they are, probably are. It's like, unless I'm constantly now churning out 10-second TikToks or 30-second TikToks or things about the music in some way, it feels like I'm not in people's immediate memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no presence there. And that is really annoying.
It is.
That is really annoying.
Yeah, I get that. I think it's interesting. I have a couple of mates that have just decided to just not do that. Like they've just gone, I don't subscribe to that anymore. Like I've done what I've done for a couple of releases, whatever, but I don't want to subscribe to that. And I think I've done that with like with one of my newest groups, the Justice Trio. We just released a record and we released 1 single and then 5 more all at once. Yeah. And that's simply unheard of. I've actually genuinely received a lot of negative feedback. What? Not on the music.
Okay, just on the release.
Simply because I released them all at once.
Well, that's really weird.
And I'm just like, we wrote some of these songs that were like, John wrote some of these songs back in a season of his life that was like 2020.
Yeah. So they've been sitting around for ages. He doesn't want to be releasing
these in June 2026.
No, exactly.
Just so that we can release them occasionally. And it's sort of just like, the music is a season. We wanted to make sure that when people said, so what's the Justice Trio again? We went, it's this. Listen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go check it out.
Rather than it just being for the sake of...
And that's the thing too. You get scared when you write music because you're like, you've written this thing, you've worked so hard on it. You get scared because you're like, I want to put this out there for people to consume. But if I don't do it right and I don't do it at the right time, is this going to be a wasted song, moment, whatever?
Literally.
And that's something that I struggled with for a long, long time. And when I first started releasing music, I really was in my head about like, is it right to do it now? Oh, am I going to be able to do a gig to support this? Am I going to be able to make enough TikToks that are interesting and put? And then at the end of the day, I just thought, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll try my best when it comes out. But I think that one of the things that I have to remind myself is something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
So rather than sitting around going like, I don't know if this is the right time, I'm just going to sit on this song, or I'm just going to hoard these songs and not post them yet because I got to make a couple TikToks and organize a gig and just adding all these things in my head. If I find myself doing that now, I'm just like, just finish the song and release it.
Pop it out.
Fuck it. You know what I mean? So
there's enough, like as someone that also mixes stuff, there's enough finessing and going back to this and fresh ears and I'm not done yet. There's enough of that already.
100%.
You don't need to add it in with once it's a finished product being like, oh, no, I don't know, because this and TikToks and...
100%. And that's half the game too, is like you said, is going back and especially in the mix. God, I hate mixing so much. But it's going back in... it's the worst part. Is going back and listening to something and going like, oh, I could make this sound better. Like, oh, the kick could be punchier or the guitars are a bit thin. But it's like, just fucking do it and then release it. And then the next one... improve it if you want to, if not, do the same thing. But that's, again, like, all of that stuff is, it's insignificant to just doing it.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think is like, you also don't realize, like, people's perception of you as an artist, if that makes sense. You're always in your own head thinking about every last move, but to a person who's not involved in what you're doing, they'll just see little moments and then it'll create some sort of sum of its parts in their head.
Yep.
Like there's people I'll run into that I haven't seen in ages, right? Or happened a couple months ago. Went out for my friend Keelan's birthday.
Oh yeah, yep.
Ran into a young man there at the function named Radio Michael. Radio Mike, lovely.
Radio Michael as the birth certificate.
That's his government name. And I haven't seen Mike in ages, right? And Mike's doing his own thing. He's doing crazy things, working with Hamish and Andy and all sorts of stuff, which I thought was crazy. And I'm talking to him like, dude, Hamish and Andy, that's sick. And then he's like, dude, Blankface is like smashing it. And in my head, I'm like, really? Well, yeah, that's what that was my reaction was like, well, yeah, I've done some songs and I played a few gigs, like, but I wouldn't. I'm like kind of shocked. This guy who I don't like necessarily keep in touch with regularly, or even really talk to about what I'm working on or what gigs are coming up or whatever. His perception of me is like, dude, you're killing it. Like the music's going amazing. Like the shows look sick. All this stuff. I'm like, oh, it's just what I'm projecting and doing has like created this image to other people of like, oh no, you're like a legitimate thing. You know what I mean?
Whereas that's true. The legitimization of it.
That's what it is, and that's what it is in my head. Like a year ago, before I because I've been making music and working on it for years and years and years now. But I only have truly like started putting myself out there and backing it and like advertising it and projecting this probably for about a year. And I reckon a year ago, like people close to me would be like, oh, he's a musician. You know what I mean? But other people would just be like, oh, he's just like a funny guy that edits videos and he's on tour with, Luke and Blake and all that. But whatever. But that's now when I meet people, they're like, oh, dude, how's the music? You're a musician. The gig's looking great, whatever. And it's such a like rewarding, fulfilling thing. Yeah. And that is because, you start at these little stepping stones of just post a clip of the gig or release this song and bit by bit. And, sometimes I wake up and I feel like, fuck, like,
have I actually done anything?
That's what I mean, yeah.
But then you get these reminders.
Exactly right. And you go, oh no, it is rewarding. And you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the thing. And I have to shout out my girlfriend Mia. She was the biggest game changer for me because meeting her and like having someone who was like straight away was like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, my dream is to like play music and be a musician. I've done it my whole life. That's who I am or whatever. Like having her listen to music or whatever and click and go like understand it straight away and be like, yeah, that's what you are. Like this is you. You should be focusing on this. This is the number one priority. And like have her support me from the jump of meeting her. Like that was really the first biggest game changer. And she's going to listen to this. So I love you so much, babe. Thank you so much.
That's exactly like Erin. She's exactly the same. When I first met her, I sort of met her through like that music fit. It was exactly the same thing. Fun fact, I was actually, I played in a band with her boyfriend at the time.
Oh, really? I think I remember you telling me this.
So, but like it's always been music and stuff like that, and always supported the different routes. And we've had some poo-poos, we've had some ones that petered out, some ones that weren't so good. But the same time, there was sort of like a pragmatic support to, okay, I know that one was
yeah.
a bit of a, but that's fine.
But that's the thing.
What's next,
it's not about like, that thing failed, so now give up on it forever. It's like surrounding yourself with people who get who you are and what you want to do. You know what I mean? The bigger picture thing. And that sounds like something that is like, but you're like, oh, surely your friends support you. And I'm like, yeah, all my friends support me, obviously. But it's people who are genuinely like, no, that is you, and understand you, and are like, yeah, you got to do your thing, even if no one's listening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it started. And since then, and since that, it's really been a game changer. And just getting out of my head and just doing stuff. So
yeah, absolutely a mindset thing. I suppose to go from there, when you talked about your little stepping stones and stuff, a big stepping stone was to sort of not take the music seriously, but to have the music on a different platform.
Yeah, okay.
Was like the BLT and Blankface like shows
together.
The
live
like, so
shows,
it's like just for a bit of context. So Tyler is one of three. He's the T in BLT, a podcast with Luke Kidgel and Blake Pavey.
Yes.
And essentially, I don't know, I wouldn't know the idea, how the idea came to be, but like you decided to take it on the road as the pod and as Blankface. And
let's rip the curtain back, and I'll tell the story of how that idea came to fruition, and it was awesome. Now, again, as I described Mia as someone who's like a genuine supportive, who I am, whatever. Luke, Mr. Kidgel, Australia's greatest comedian, that doesn't have a disability.
Yeah.
And Blake is Australia's greatest comedian that does have a disability.
Yes.
I knew, because I wanted to clarify.
Differently able,
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew if I called Luke Australia's greatest comedian, Blake might be sad. I just want to say...
And you have to see him later today.
Exactly. Yes, I am touring with him.
Luke's still away, so it's fine.
I got to keep him happy.
Yeah.
They're both Australia's greatest comedians. Anyway, the point is, Luke has been one of my best mates since probably like year 8 or 9 of high school. And he's exactly the same. He's always been, since I've known him, like, oh, this dude, like, he loves music, he writes music, and his music is good. That is what he is. Yep. So even when, we're after high school and Luke started to take off with comedy, and I was just working shitty retail jobs and just doing, like, garbage stuff, I would say to Luke, like, dude, please give me work. Like, I'll edit videos for you. Like, I'll do anything you want. I just don't want to do this. And his whole thing was like, man, this is going to consume you and this is going to be your whole life. Like, I want you to not have to do that because I want you to do your music. And eventually I just whittled him down and said, no, let me work with you. I want to be around it. And luckily when we started working together on, comedy stuff, obviously our working relationship clicked as good as our friendship did.
Exactly, yeah. So
that kind of built and took off. And working with him and seeing how it's all that stuff of like branding and content and working behind the scenes that comedy's obviously like with, like crowd work and stuff like that, it's easy to clip and dispose of. So Luke found what worked for him in commodifying his art and what he does. But seeing how he does it and chopping it up was a big eye-opener for me as well. And then doing BLT, the podcast started, because it sounds bizarre, right? 2 comedians who like are actually known comedians with big followings are doing a podcast together, and then there's just the third guy who's just some random dude who's like their friend who doesn't have a... Do you know what I mean? It just sounds weird. Like it's a weird sell. And even when we're trying to get like sponsors and stuff, like plugging the podcast as like Australia's 2 biggest comedians and this guy. You know what I mean? So it's like we break down our metrics and stuff online, and it's like, you could sit there and yap about Luke and Blake all day and how amazing they're doing, and then there's my little corner of like, streams on. He's got 20,000 streams on his single. Like that's. Do you know what I mean? But that's like again, both Blake and Luke, two people who are so supportive of that.
And I think that's just interject. That's the thing. It's like it's built off and it's sustainable based on the fact that they froth it. And
exactly. But that is why it works, is because they're 2 people who get me, and that's the podcast started because Blake got asked to do a Spotify show. I don't know if we talked about this. I don't even know if I'm allowed to. I don't care. What are they going to do? They're not going to hunt me down. They're not supporting me anyway, Spotify. So, so basically, Blake got asked to do a Spotify podcast, right? And they were asking him to do a solo show, and he said, "Well, I could do a solo show." He'd tried to do a few solo podcasts in the past, and he said, "Oh, I've actually got this really funny mate. Can I just bring him in?" They were just like, "Yep, whatever you want to do." Okay. So Blake and I are actually working on a Spotify podcast together. And whatever, that was an experience trying to work through that and get the show going with them. And we were doing practice episodes and we were working in their studios and doing this and this. And it just felt very, like focus groupy. You know what I mean? Okay. It felt like a team of, when like Netflix will make like a show. I don't even know how to describe it. I don't even go down that path. It felt weird. It didn't feel like two mates hanging out talking, because we'd do the podcast for an hour, which is what felt right, and then there'd be all these sorts of notes and like we should do this.
And that button point needs to come down and Tyler, then we could laugh a little bit more when Blake tells a joke.
Yeah, and I'm like, laugh when Blake tells a joke. That'll be hard.
I'm not going to do a breakthrough bit of work here, guys.
Exactly.
I don't laugh at your joke. Don't laugh at mine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So then that was feeling a bit weird. And then because we were touring with Luke, so Luke, Blake and I were hanging out all the time, it just kind of made sense to be like, you know what, let's do this thing. And then we were away somewhere, and I think Blake said it. He was like, if we had a podcast, we could just call it BLT. And that's like a funny,
Sandwich.
It's sandwich, yeah, because that's a sandwich. That's and that was literally it. So we started doing that. And again, both of them never really cared about like, oh, you don't have a following or anything. It was just like, no, this feels right and it's authentic, and this feels like it's something that we want to do because it'll be fun. And then we do the podcast for like 7 or 8 months, and I'm touring with Luke and I'm touring with Blake, and I released I've released Shame, which was like the sort of song where I was like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously from now on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a song I was really proud of from the jump, and I was playing it to people like Mia, like Luke, and they were going, dude, this is like actually like this shit is cooking.
It is.
And so that was like, okay, well, I'm going to take it seriously and see what I can do. And so that's when it started to kick into gear. And when that came out and people were like, dude, this song fucks, like this song is cooking, I was like, damn, okay, well, maybe there's something here. I should put a band together. And I got the band together, we played a gig, and everyone was like, dude, this stuff live is heating. Like this is and it was really rewarding. And I was like, okay, well, if I can do this in Melbourne, maybe I should try and take this around. You know what I mean? And so I was thinking of this real like throw it together DIY. Like I'll go to like the big cities, and even if I play to 4 people, even if I play to no one, it's more just like I want to say that I've done it.
Yep.
I want to say that like. I want to be able to post photos on Instagram of like Blankface in Adelaide or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Just for things like to post about, just because just doing things had been working for me.
That's me, just doing things.
That's what it is. It's like just doing something, even if it's doesn't feel like in the moment you're going to win a Grammy or some bullshit. Just doing things, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I said to Luke and his brother Jack, who does all the touring and booking and stuff like that, I was like, do you guys know of any venues in like, Adelaide, Brisbane, Sydney that are just tiny, that are just like dive bars that, have you done any shows at Luke doing comedy? And I spoke to Jack, and Jack was like, yeah, you could do this, you could do that. He's like, just maybe speak to Luke and see what Luke says. And so I said to Luke, I was like, I'm thinking of doing this little tour to like 0 people. Without hesitation, he was just like, dude, you could do that, but what I think we should do is you'll just do your music and we'll do the podcast, because you slap mine and Blake's name on a poster, people will show up. So he was just like, dude, don't even like, yeah, if you really want to do that, go and do that. But I almost insist we will carve out time in our schedule because you need to take the band and the music and play it in front of as many people as possible.
And if we can facilitate that,
exactly.
Please.
Exactly. He was like, dude, like, if you put Blankface on a poster, maybe no one will know what that is, and you might get a few people wandering in who are like, okay, I like this, and then they'll follow you from that. He goes, alternatively, you put Luke and Blake on a poster, you get your 200 people in Sydney, and then people go like, I don't know what Blankface is, but we'll stick around and watch it. That's 200 people leaving who are now like, that this music is fucking awesome.
Yep.
And that's literally what it was. Mm-hmm. Like the reason we did the live shows was because I wanted to do some tiny shitty little tour. And my 2 best mates were like, bro, we can hook you up.
Let's do it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I'll ride or die for Blake and Luke forever.
Yep.
Is because you do not get 2 more authentic and like that's the epitome of like 2 people who are like, oh, you're my friend, I'm gonna do everything I can to like bring you up with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I have a thing that's a bit unique, which is following.
Yes, exactly. And he was like, that's the thing too. Like in almost every way, they were stoked because Luke and Blake are like, we can do the live pod thing, which, live comedy, that's pretty standard. Mm-hmm. Live podcast is a bit unique.
Yep.
But there's I don't even know if there are other events that are like come watch a podcast and then listen to a band. You know what I mean? It's super
hasn't
weird.
been done before.
Yeah, because it is a weird setup.
Well, like even in the survey, when you guys would start the shows, each episode, like how many people know that this is not like a Luke or a Blake?
Yeah, it's not stand up. It's a podcast.
Like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. That's literally what it was. Like we in Adelaide, I swear to God, like we are in Adelaide, we come out on stage to do the podcast, and it's like, yeah, who listens to the show? It'll be like 2 people going, woo. And who thinks this was a Luke and Blake comedy? And then the whole audience chants.
Room erupts.
And that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, this is something they're not ready for, and they did not expect. Not that they're not ready for it, but something that they weren't expecting. But then by the end of the night, like I'm walking around meeting people dripping with sweat after jumping around and doing the music stuff, and meeting people who are like, dude, what the fuck? This was awesome. Like, they're paying like, you pay whatever it was, $40 for a ticket or some shit, and you're getting like 2 hours of entertainment.
Yep.
And it was super unique. And I think because people had no expectation, or they had an expectation that was sort of destroyed and different from what they got.
Yep.
They were so happy and stoked with what they got to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that whole tour was fucking awesome. And we are putting together something for Brisbane, so something nearby here. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm not locking anything in. It's fun to say things. You know what I mean? We
do know that.
We do know that.
I will not let you leave my house if you don't confirm it. Get on the phone immediately.
Yeah. I'll blink 3 times to save me or some
exactly.
shit. But we're making things up. But that shit was awesome. So yeah, that's why that happened.
Well, then, so from there, like to scoot back a long way, how did you sort of get into music in the first place? Are you like the Lone Ranger in the family, or did you have a pretty musical upbringing, or what's the goss there?
This is great. I've never been able to have these masturbatory conversations about music.
Mate,
this is awesome.
I don't care how many ribs are missing. All I want to know, the thing is, though, people say though, and I say this all the time when I do the pod, it's because no one has asked you. Like after the set, they go, "Oh, good song, man. That one called Shane or whatever it's called. That's great." No one's actually ever asked you a question probably about you in this setting musically.
No. You know what is so cool? Like sometimes I get questions about music and stuff like that. God, I love it so much because it feels so. It is just straight up wanky, and it is like, oh, someone's recognizing some really nerdy, dumb thing that only I thought about. You know what I mean? But it's. This is why this show is so good. I'm gonna hit you with some compliments now because there isn't like a tool. I'm not even going to speak about like music as a whole, but I'm going to say Australian music. The Australian music industry can be extremely isolating, and it can be extremely there is a monopoly on like Triple J and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like they have this whole thing where they're like, no, Triple J on Earth, like we support artists that aren't found. But everything that they prop up, and this may sound a bit conspiracy theorist, and again, I've just spoken about how I do a podcast with 2 nationally famous comedians, so that is like extremely nepotism anyway. But you would think that would give me some sort of leg up, and it really, I don't feel like it has, apart from like giving me just a core sort of listener base, if that makes sense. But it's not like, hey, I do a podcast with Luke and I play in a band. Give me management, give me a record deal, give me shows, give me a label or whatever. Like, that doesn't exist, and it feels extremely isolating when there's a monopoly on stuff like Triple J, and they'll be like on Triple J on Earth. Yeah, we only listen to quality music, and we'll prop up and support independent artists. But then whoever they're like spotlighting or whoever they're pushing is like someone who has like 15K followers on Instagram already, is doing like a national tour somehow, is opening for artists that clearly they've got some sort of management or they work for some sort of publishing agency or whatever that is connected and can get them these spots. So a show like this that took a while to get back here, but Bailey, a show like this is amazing because giving smaller creatives an outlet to talk about this sort of thing and feel like they're a part of a community and a scene in some way is such a rewarding, motivating thing to have. You know what I mean? So you're doing a fucking cool thing, my friend. You're doing a very, very cool thing. And that's why, like we talked about this before we recorded, I really wanted to do this in person because I thought doing this over Zoom or something would not that it would demean it or anything like that, but I just thought like having this sort of conversation, having it be more authentic and face to face, like this sort of thing is worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's worth it for me if I'm coming from Gold Coast or some shit to get up a little bit earlier and drive out this way and have this conversation because this shit is really cool. You know what I mean?
That's why I love doing it. For me, like at its core, you talk about, if you're going to do this tour and you're going to play to 3 people, whatever, that's 3 people.
Yeah.
For me, it's like if I have 10 people listen or I have 110 people listen, I get to have some of the most interesting, inspiring conversations that I just bank up. I love having these conversations. I love meeting people and getting to know more people like yourself, just getting to know them better and to find out these things that, no one's ever asked them or just some insights from different people that are at different levels. Some that are really heavy, they're doing cruises every week. Some people that are like, if it's not original, I won't play it.
Exactly, and completely different.
All of it's fine.
Yeah, perceptions, experiences and vibes, and it's really cool to listen to.
I'm also happy to go in on the Triple J thing when it's just like, you get the Triple J Hottest 100 and it's just like, the Kid Laroi wins. I'm sure he's stoked. I'm sure he's stoked to hear that a country of 28 million, a few of them voted his song to be the best out of of us. I'm sure he's stoked.
Yeah, or it's like Billie Eilish or someone will win and you're like, dude, Billie Eilish does not care.
You're going to call her up so she can phone in? Is she going to phone in when she wins?
Exactly, yeah. She doesn't. Even when it's like, when they did like the Hottest 100 of the decade or whatever and Tame Impala won, and it's like, dude, Kevin Parker doesn't care about this anymore. Like he's well past his, at least he's Australian, I guess, but it's like,
well, that's,
you know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's like they are the most popular for a reason. Like obviously their music is reaching more people and it is great music. So,
and good on them.
Good on them. But that's the thing. It's like, I feel like, something like Triple J and Triple J on Earth where they say like, no, we support local talent. It's like, no, you support local talent that you feel like you can really feed off. You know what I mean? Like you can really market and push and they're always
very calculated risk.
It is very calculated risk and it's very like, you always see it. It'll be like the artists are like, this is the future of pop music. And it'll be like this artist that's doing like 4 dates. They've got like no followers or no real fan base, but they're doing these big rooms. They're sponsored by Triple J. The gig is like put on by Triple J or some shit. And you're just like, this feels like there's a team behind the scenes here who found someone who can sing and now they're going to just all sit around and plan out this career and boom, 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 boom. They're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing, like, if you're the artist doing that and I'm sure you're a talented individual and go for your life, that's awesome. But it just is irking that like, there are so many amazing bands, artists, singers who have the songwriting ability, who have the producing ability, the performing ability, whatever it is, the ability to do something and have a great career, but they don't cross that line or they don't get there because they can't get management or they can't get someone that helps them book tours or book shows or they don't get taken seriously.
Or they don't have that marketing acumen to make content.
Exactly. Or they just, exactly. Which is hard.
Which circles back to what I said at the start about, like, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that now it's literally solely yours and my responsibility to market our band.
Which is crazy because if you're a guitarist, you also have to be a fucking world-class editor. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately...
But they're not... It's not like one comes with the other.
No, not at all. They're
if you have it,
completely different skill sets.
It used to be a bonus. Now it's a necessity.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like it's one of those things where I think I'm... Like, I love writing music and making music. That is the thing I love the most in my life, in my existence. But I'm lucky that I also know how to use Photoshop. You know what I mean? Like, I'm lucky that for my job, I had to get better at editing and get better at Photoshop, which also indirectly benefited my music career because I know how to edit ads or I know how to create posters for my own gigs. All this stuff that would be expensive or difficult to do for other artists, which is completely fair. You know what I mean? Completely makes sense. So, yeah. Anyway, you asked about why I started music, so no.
Then again, though, did you? When I said, did you grow up in a musical household? Did you even touch on that? Or
no, I didn't.
Did you just black out and go, "Fuck, Triple J"?
Nah,
real corrupt,
bro,
man.
you got the CEO of Japanese here, bro.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So, did I grow up in a musical household? Listen, my mum kind of did. My dad he's like, his favorite song is American Pie, Don McLean, but apart from that, he doesn't really touch music. He likes the Beatles and that's about it. He's a very sporty cricket guy. I'm not that at all. Like, I didn't even really know the Olympics was on. That's sort of my vibe. You know what I mean? Like, I could not give 2 fucks. The most I played basketball growing up and I watch WWE now. That's the most I get into sport. So Mum, though, she sung, but she never, and she did play piano when she was younger. We had a piano in the house. It's out of tune, and she didn't really ever play it, but she did play a lot of music when I was a kid that I got into.
Okay.
So Queen was a big one for her. She played a lot of Queen. Fell in love with Queen. She played I remember a lot of Wham, a lot of Van Halen, a lot of Alice Cooper, random like rock and pop and stuff like that. And when I was probably, the thing that kind of started it all, where I was like, oh, I fucking love music, was when I was in I think it was in grade 6, and we were going on an excursion somewhere, and one of my friends was like, dude, have you listened to this album? And he had American Idiot in like a Walkman's, like one of those CD things. He had American Idiot. He was like, dude, have you listened to American Idiot? I was like, don't even know what that is. He's like, dude, this is like the greatest album of all time. And when you're like 12 and you hear something like Green Day like that, and it just kind of like is accessible and it clicks, you're just like, oh, this shit rips. You know what I mean? And that was like my music. It was the first thing that was like independent of mum or someone else playing it, where I was like, this is awesome. You know what I mean? That was the first one where I was like, this is my album. So he was like, dude, I'll burn you a CD. He goes home, he burns me American Idiot, and then Green Day's like greatest hits album, International Superhits or whatever. He gives them to me at school the next day, and I just wore those CDs out.
Yeah.
Like American Idiot for me was like the first thing where I was like, this shit is crazy. I have to learn guitar. I have to sing. And so I listened to that for months, and I said to Mum, like, Mum, I have to get guitar lessons at school. And she was like, no, like I'm the kind of person who will do something for 5 minutes, and if it doesn't reward me, then I'm like, fuck that, I'm on to the next thing. You know what I mean? So she was like, you're going to do that with guitar. You're not signing up for guitar lessons. And I was like, no, trust me, I'll stick with it. And it was one of those things where she just kind of refused. And then I borrowed a guitar from my uncle. And my uncle, he's a real metalhead. He was a drummer in a metal band in like the 90s, and he's a freak drummer. He's an amazing drummer. And so I'd kind of grown up with metal and stuff like that. And he was like, he'd always have like Guitar Hero games and shit. So we'd all hear the soundtrack and the metal and stuff like that. And there was songs and stuff I liked. He lent me and my older brother an amp. And then I think he lent us a guitar. And that shit just got slammed, man. I was like, as soon as I found what guitar tabs were, I think in like year 7, and figured out how to read a guitar tab, that's it. What are we doing here? Yeah. Show's on. You know what I mean? Show's over.
Yeah. Like something has now clicked in my brain. I'm now in a new setting.
Exactly. That's right. It's like now I can figure out how to play, you know, this Green Day song. I can figure out how to play Holiday or like Jesus or whatever. I'm like, shit, this is the best thing ever. And then so I just taught myself guitar after that. It was like, my older brother he hated Green Day. He hated all that sort of pop punk stuff. He was like, oh, that's lame shit. And he would just listen to like Steve Vai and Yngwie Malmsteen, all these fucked like classical metal guitarists. And we had like the opposite experience with music, where my older brother would just sit there and play guitar solos at 1,000,000 miles a second.
Okay.
I can't do shit like that. If I'm playing a guitar solo, it is like, I still think I'm a bit of a hack guitarist. I don't think I'm that good of a guitarist. Like, I just do things that I'm like the king of like writing something that looks flashy, but it really isn't.
Okay, yeah.
But I picked up the guitar. He was in year 10. He's 2 years older than me. He would play like, these fuck solos. And then I would be playing like my 4-chord Green Day songs and singing along to them because I'm an attention whore. And he would be like, you know what I mean? He'd be like, oh, dude, you're so lame, whatever. But then I was I was just doing this easy stuff or whatever, but I was in bands with my friends, hanging out. We'd skip like class and just go to the music rooms at our school and just play music all day. Like,
love it.
That was it. That was like game on. So I didn't really grow up in a musical house necessarily, but at the same time I did kind of. So yeah, you know what I mean? It was like one of those things. And my parents were always like, yeah, you want to go to band practice, go do it. Like I think I got my first guitar I got for my birthday when I was in year 9 because I'd just been slamming my uncle's, the borrowed one. And it was this like, it was this big like gothic flying V. It was like this, it was crazy. It was so funny because you give it like a 14-year-old, like you take him to a guitar shop and you go, yeah, right, you know, you got birthday money, we're going to put in some money, pick what you want. And then I point at like the most ridiculous looking instrument. and it was a baritone flying V as well.
Oh my God.
Which baritone instruments, I know now, I didn't know at the time, is like, they're like for heavier music. So you're supposed to put like heavier strings on them and kick them to like a real low tuning. So like most music is in E standard. That's how you have a guitar. Like these are built for like drop B and shit like that. So then I'd be trying to play Green Day on this thing with like heavy strings, and the action on the guitar, the strings are like 10 feet above the fretboard. I'm like pressing down. My fingers are sore, and I'm in like 15 years old, like, why isn't this working? And that was it. That's what taught me how to play guitar. You know what I mean? That's what taught me my life. Fingers, baby. That's what you have to make it work. That's what I mean. Yeah.
And the thing is, it's one of those things where you don't know what you've done wrong. I had that with a snare drum I bought. I saw there was the snare wires on sale, and there was like some 20 strands, and there was some 40 strands. The 40 strands were cheaper.
And what's the 40 strands? Is that?
So I was gonna say that's an electric drum kit that won't have anything on it.
Is that like? Does that mean it's like tighter wound?
No. So the actual snares on the bottom, the wire at the bottom, rather than having 20 strands, it's 40 strands.
Oh, okay. So it's just
I didn't realize that the snare bed that occurs where you normally have it meet the snare bed.
Okay. Yep.
The actual snare bed itself. Has a certain divot for where it sits on, so that the snare wires sit flat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For a wider one, it needs a wider snare bed.
That makes sense.
12-year-old Bailey didn't know this, so he's like, I got a steal here.
No,
you didn't get a steal, because every time I hit it, it went...
Yeah. Oh, that sucks.
And I was like, I can't get it tight. Why is it buzzing?
Yeah.
And it's because it was not set up for that.
No, and nobody... So
I was like, I'm going to keep tuning.
Yeah.
And I think it actually gave me an inclination of, okay, what does the bottom head on a snare do?
Yeah.
What does the top head on a snare do? I spent an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on this.
Yeah.
It sounded rubbish because it was not designed for it. It was never going to work.
It forces you to think about it, though.
Exactly. I was like, I need to figure out the mechanics of this instrument.
Yeah. So did you grow up in a musical household?
Mum played organ growing up, and Dad did a lot of...
That's so random.
Yeah,
organ.
and Dad did a lot of production stuff. So Dad did like TV production and a bit of sound in high school and all that. He did like musicals for like John Paul College and stuff like that.
Oh,
did
that's
some
cool.
bigger production stuff. Some more of the buttons work, more of the stuff that you're sort of doing now with Blake and Luke.
Yeah.
But for bigger productions, did TV for like the Motorsport,
Yes,
John
of course,
Farnham,
yeah.
that sort of stuff. So,
cool.
So did some stuff that was musically related.
Yeah.
Always a big fan, and Mum and Dad were always gigs. The one thing that they always said when I was sort of growing up, and when they would talk to newer parents as I became like 10, 11, 12 something, is you need to adjust how you can fit your children into your life.
Yep.
You don't go, okay, we don't do fun anymore because you're here. So like, they take me to all ages shows at Morning Star and
That's
Mornington,
awesome.
and I'd go and see, James Rain and
That's cool. So you saw like live music growing up
all the time. Any all ages show from when I was like 10, I'd go to the shows with my sister. Like we'd go to these things. They'd bring us because you can go now because it's an all ages show. We enjoy live music, so you're coming. That
so
sort
cool.
of stuff.
Yeah, my parents didn't. They weren't in it enough because live music can be really expensive, especially if you're taking kids and stuff.
Oh, exactly.
They weren't into it enough where they were like, we're gonna, like we have to go and see this band. We have to go and see this. So I never saw like live music. I think my first concert was when I was in year 7, and it was Green Day because I'd been obsessed with Green Day. Mum was like, all right, well, this one, we can take you to see. And again, like that, I would watch. I remember being in like grade 6, year 7, year 8. I would watch like Queen live concerts. Queen Rock Montreal is like one of the greatest live concert films ever. That shit is crazy. And then I saw Green Day live, and even if you're not a Green Day fan, they're the sort of band where you see them at a festival, you see them at a show, they put on a show. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that shit was like, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. And it's not even like, again, it's funny because something I've thought about a lot since getting older, and especially since playing live gigs and meeting other bands and starting to form like seeing this community, especially in Melbourne. Like there's a lot of live music in it, and it's a huge variety of it. It's similar to how like songwriters aren't editors, songwriters aren't a marketing team. Like you shouldn't have to do both, but you do. It's like writing a song is not the same as performing a live show. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And not that you necessarily have to be like doing like the guitar faces and shit and just being like, I'm playing live.
Exactly.
But putting on some sort of show and connecting with the crowd live. One thing I realized when getting the band together, the first thing was like, all right, well, we're going to do this live as like a 3-piece. You know what I mean? So I play guitar and sing. I've got Tom on the bass. He's this freak bassist, plays like all sorts of jazz and shit like that. And I got Reese on the drums, and Reese is again a freak drummer, and he's like, I knew both of them I went to school with them both. They were a bit younger than me, but I knew them through music after school because they played in this like stoner rock, like Queens of the Stone Age style band. And they were playing these fucking crazy time changes, crazy riffs, crazy parts and stuff like that. And then when I said to them like, hey, listen, my music's like, you know, I like to think there's a bit of diversity, but it's not like we're not doing anything too crazy. Like, you know what I mean? And when we do it live, there's only 3 of us. So in the studio, I love to layer the instruments. I love to put piano in a song. I love to hide synths in songs. Mellotron, I fucking love the mellotron. I love strings. I love rock operas and shit like that. So I love making things super layered. And then it was like I have songs that are acoustic and just acoustic guitar and a vocal that I wanted to incorporate in the set because I'd released them and my friends and stuff were like, dude, that's like just a great song. So figuring out like live arrangements, how to make songs work with 3 band members was the first task that was like, oh, okay, we're going to do this live. Oh, this is like a different part of like, this is different to writing a song. It's like now I have to think about how does this song translate in this context, in this setting. You know what I mean? I can't play a song like Pretty G exactly the same because that song didn't have drums and it's like a folk song. It's like a bit slower. It's a bit bouncy or whatever. How do I make this work with a freak bassist and a freak drummer and make it sound sick? So that was another part of it. And then it was like, okay, now we're in the room and there's a bunch of people here like who are drinking and like they've just watched this punk band that I've asked to open for me who are fucking awesome. How do we compete and like make sure that they remember us? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is something that I'm like, oh, I didn't really ever think about this before, but seeing bands like Queen and studying and watching Green Day and shit like that from like 12 years old, you really like start thinking about it in this different way of like, oh, they're seeing a live show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just
just seeing the tracks, not just seeing the album be played.
No, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with seeing a band like that who is just locked in and playing the music. Like, you know, I don't know, someone like, I'm trying to think of who I've seen in the last 12 months or something. Someone like Alex G, right? Alex G writes this beautiful music and it can be very like sort of ethereal, sort of like acoustic-y folk and like bedroom pop and shit like that. I go and see him at the Forum in Melbourne, which is this massive room, and he's with, you know, like his 4 or 5 piece band or whatever, and the songs are different, but they're just locked in the whole time. And it works with the music though, you know what I mean? So it's this weird thing of like, you know, it's not something you expect when you sit at your laptop and have your guitar in your hand, you're recording and building this song. You're not expecting like, oh, how am I going to play this in this context of like a live show? But it's just another part of the game, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And for me, I have only one band out of all my groups that is not a trio.
Oh, really?
So like I have Sailing Space, which is bass, tracks, and drums, and that's one where we're figuring out how to utilize small track, you know, like really high, unbelievable vocals that you couldn't replicate and things like that. They're pretty stripped back, the tracks. But that with the bass, with a strong rhythm section, and then a vocal, and then sometimes keys, and then the Justice Trio is exactly the same arrangement as Blankface. And those sorts of things. It's a band from the club. I have the bass player. Plays all the guitar solos on the bass. And
cool.
It's an octave pedal between the two.
Oh, shit, that's really cool.
And that's who I'm playing with. That's who I'm playing with today.
Are the tracks recorded that way, or are they recorded with guitar?
No, the tracks are obviously not recorded with guitar running through a bass amp. They're recorded with bass over the top, but all the guitar parts are still played. All the solos are still played on Esteban's bass. That's
really cool.
And that's what I'm doing today. That's the gig I'm playing today. And sick. That sort of stuff goes off. So I completely get. There's 3 different. There's like the tracks and playing to a click and doing that stuff. Then there's we've got different people playing the same instrument but differently, and then we've got just like the Blankface thing. What can we include? And I purposely said to John and Caleb when we put the Justice Trio record together, as I was mixing it, I'm like, there's things I can add here, but I don't want to. We did a little bit of organ because John's a phenomenal keys player. But we didn't really do anything too unbelievable that we can never replicate.
And that's sometimes you do have to draw the line of like, oh, I would really love to add like 16 different synth parts and a piano here, but
we came out of a live band because we're 3 people out of the Delacoma band. So we came out of a live band after touring in the States, seeing what it sounds like when we play it live, and then how much of that plus a bit more should we record, rather than sort of the reverse for you, where it's like I've already got these really polished, you know, rock symphonies. What can we do with this? Just
how do we make this work with 3 of us live? Well, it works both ways. Like. So the songs that I have now, because I've got so much, it's the same thing as you said before. It's funny like how you're saying like, you've had these songs written since 2020 or whatever. So the basic layout of like songs and music that I've got coming up, I have 3 separate albums in my head right now. So I've got like probably 40 or 50 songs that I'm like, yeah, these are all fucking, I really am happy with them. I'm really proud of them. And they all fit into these different boxes, 3 different boxes, if that makes sense. And I find personally it helps me and gets me excited and motivated to make music when I box myself in.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? If I give myself some sort of directive or some objective or confines,
some sort of constraints, I think.
that's what it is. Some sort of constraints and like thought process of like, and again, like I said, I have this theory about like music now and bands now and how bands are going to be different from now on versus how they were in like the 70s, 80s, 90s. I have this theory that, and I don't think it's really a theory, I think it's just the truth, where like when you're a kid in like the 70s or the 80s, you know, you get a record for your birthday and that's like your shit for like a year, you know what I mean? Or until Christmas. You get like a record or two, or your brother has a record, and so like your brother has like an Alice in Chains album, you're like, okay, I'm a metalhead now, you know what I mean?
This is my personality.
Yeah, this is my personality now. My brother likes this and I like this, so that's what I am. And so then you listen to Alice in Chains and you listen to all that other shit that's like that, you know? But since like, you know, the mid 2000s and like streaming and MP3 players and shit like that. Like I've had an iPod since I was in grade 5, and so like I listen to fucking everything. Like like I've been listening to so much hip hop. Like now, that when I sit down to write like a rock song, I'm thinking about like, oh, maybe I could put a drum sample in here or some shit. You know what I mean? Like I'm thinking about stuff like that, and I think it's going to be really normal for bands to do this sort of genre hopping amongst like their one umbrella, as we were saying, of like, yeah, this is our like jazz album, this is our rock album, whatever. And I love that stuff. I think that's really cool. And so for me now, I'm working on these different projects where I'm like, okay, this first one's like, this first album has like Shame, Evil Eye Pendant, Head in a Hole. It's like this sort of garagey, like layered, folky rock opera sort of style. That's the kind of the first one. Then the second album is like acousticy, moody, real sort of low key and a bit like Cynthia, and that's what Game is on. So the song I just released, Game, is from that second sort of project.
That makes sense. Yep.
And then the third thing is like, since playing with the band, where I'm like, oh, I want like songs that have these big choruses that are like movers, and like the bass can really be big and the drums can be fucking huge, and like I want it to be more abrasive and like a little bit more intense and crazy and like stuff like that. And that's this third thing that I've got going on at the moment. So it's like that writing songs for the third one, where I'm like, oh, these are going to be played with the live band and the trio, is constraining me when I'm recording, because usually I'll be like, oh, this could use 6 synth parts. I'm like, nah, fuck that. No. I'm going to make it happen with the guitar. I'm going to make it happen with just the bass and the drums. And this bridge section is not going to be like, obviously I say that now and the songs are going to come out and people will be like, he lied. There's like heaps of synth here. You sure? You know what I mean? But
it's fun to say things.
It's so fun to say things. But that's what I mean. When I'm writing the songs, I'm like, does this need this? Whereas for the other songs on this other album, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Just chuck it all in. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with Shame. Like a song like Shame, on the surface, like, yes, that can be played live with the trio. But there is so much in that song that song would just be enhanced by having a keyboardist, having another guitarist on stage with us. Evil Eye Pendant, you know, we play that with the trio and it does work, but that song has so many different instruments in it and different elements to it, like an arpeggiated synth and shit like that really helps it build and cook. And I would never record it. I would never record that song with just the trio, because that's not what I hear when I picture that song. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But just in saying that, yeah, it's like working in reverse with this other project of like, yeah, the band's there when I'm recording it. Let me think about that and be conscious of like recent time and how good they are and what we can do. You know what I mean? So I think that is a great thing to have and a great way to think about music. Yeah, exactly.
It's a balance, and it's exciting to be able to have both schools of thought.
Exactly right. I think that's what you need. I think you need to be conscious of that, especially when you like wanting to be like a touring band or a band that is like consistently playing live shows, stuff like that.
So then to wrap up, tell me what's next? Like what's Blankface got going on? Tell the lovely people where they can find you.
There's so much happening. Yeah. There's nothing happening. No, there's stuff happening. With the lovely people, firstly, thank you, Bailey, for having me on. This has been amazing.
An absolute pleasure.
I can't believe the time has flown. I've been having so much fun talking about myself. You know what I mean?
I've been having a ball listening
That's
to
good.
it.
Well, good. Yeah, so what's next? Well, the plan is, like I said, so I just released this song Game. Go and check that out. There's a lyric video. It's on streaming, and Then going back and listen to Shame, Head and Hole, and
is
Evil
a
Eye.
fucking unbelievable tune.
Thank you so much.
Really
Thank you so much.
unbelievable tune.
Go back and listen to those, and I want people to think about it with the thought of like, these belong to this, Game belongs to something else, and whatever. The plan is at the moment, I'm on tour with Blake now, working with him as he does his comedy tour. We're doing Queensland. We're away for a couple of weeks now. The plan is to release another song hopefully next month that's off this third one that's more about the live stuff and a little bit more rock and roll again. And then after that, it's just locking in and finishing these 3 projects because I'm like you said, sick of having these songs I've worked on for years.
Yep.
Sitting around. And so it's just finishing those and then planning on when to get them out. But I would also love to, obviously BLT and the band hopefully will be back in Brisbane at the end of the year.
Yep.
I'm not confirming nor denying anything.
No,
I'm just saying that it's fun to say things. So I'm saying that. But the plan is hopefully the Blankface band will be back sometime at the start of next year. I want to do it. We're going to try and do shows here in Brisbane. Well, not here. This is the Sunshine Coast, but in Brisbane.
You know what?
I just group them all together. You know what I mean?
I was going to say that was so nice what you said, and then fuck you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. No,
so
here in
nice.
Brisbane.
Yeah.
Right here in Brisbane. We're in Brisbane right now.
No, okay.
Yeah. So hopefully
It's right. Bradley Walker edits this. He'll be cutting that.
Yeah, exactly. We'll cut it out. So hopefully the Blankface band will be back.
Yep.
Doing a more classic style rock and roll show with a few bands opening in Brisbane, and then we're going to try and do Sydney, Adelaide, and some more in Melbourne and see what happens. But nothing is locked in. It's fun to say things. Yep. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, we've got to do a. If you do come up here, you got to do a Justice Tree or a Delacoma support. We've got to do that because I know we couldn't tee it up this time for December, but we should absolutely do that.
Yeah, man, weddings are going to kill me, bro. Dude, this is what you mean. You get to your late 20s, and everyone around you starts getting married and having kids, and you're like, I'm not having an existential crisis, midlife crisis, or anything like that.
It's just the admin of the calendar.
That's what it is. It's the admin of the calendar. It's things like weddings, bro. Dude, can I just say, listen, this is going to sound like I'm attacking someone. I know that my brother's not going to listen to this anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But destination weddings, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Listen, bro, if this does find you, Nathan, your wedding was beautiful. It was gorgeous. So happy for you. Proud of you. Love my new sister. You guys are great. Blah, blah, blah. But why don't make me do that admin of organizing the travel and the fucking this and that. A normal wedding near my house is painful enough for me. And I'm going to sound like an asshole, but if there's one thing I learned from Larry David, it's you just got to vent sometimes.
Yep.
And that's the truth. But yeah, I would have loved to play that gig. That would have been fucking awesome. Don't worry. We will cross paths again. And we will share a lineup eventually.
Yes,
Don't you worry about it.
Yes.
I love it. I love this. What you're doing here is fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been fucking awesome. Is there anything else we need to add?
Honestly, I didn't think we even needed to add about the destination weddings, but we've nailed that. So
Had to be done.
We have talked about that, so that's fantastic. Yeah, that was the last thing I had written down, just about the destination weddings. So
dude,
fantastic.
awesome. Dude, you had so many great questions. This is like being on an Australian Nardwuar interview. It was fucking awesome. For an hour though, I got to just yap about myself. How good is that?
Look, after having done radio stuff recently for bands, projects and things like that, it's something nice about getting back in the home and doing the podcast thing where it's not 3-minute breaks. So tell me, Blankface, Tyler, awesome. Well, see you at the next show. I literally didn't speak. Yeah, no, I get that. Well, thank you for being here. It's been an
dude, it's been amazing. I can't wait for this to come out. I can't wait for people to hear it, listen to it back. Hopefully everyone actually listened to it and didn't get bored and turn it off. But if they did, that's totally fine as well. I had a lot of fun just yapping your ear off. So thank you so much, bro. It's been awesome.
A pleasure. Well, guys, that is another episode of the Ask Muso podcast. You got to make sure you see Tyler if you're about. If for any of my Melbourne listeners, any of the pals I have down south, make sure you see Blankface do their thing. And,
please, man, please, I'm desperate. I need you guys to come see Blankface.
And stream the tracks. They're really good stuff. And
please definitely stream the tracks. Thank you for adding that. I appreciate that so much.
I know it's a call to action. Everyone forgets, even though it's the whole reason we're here.
Exactly.
Well, I'm here because I live here and I enjoy the chats.
you have to be here.
You're here for the.
This is your domicile. You own this place. You are here for a good reason.
Exactly.
And also follow me on Instagram at Blankface Sucks.
I was going to put that above your face as well. But
please do. Chuck that straight above the face.
Yeah. Perfect.
Cool,
awesome. Blankface Sucks. Fantastic. Well, guys,
Excellent.
That's another episode. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You know the drill where to find all these. YouTube. And until next time, I'll see you later.